Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Future Tech podcast series. It's me, Charlie Sell, the board director of Major Group, where I get a chance to speak to thought leaders, people passionate about helping to promote STEM careers, and specifically technology roles within all the young people within our communities. So I'm really pleased to have Sekhar with me today. Anu is the global head of service transition within WPP. For many of you who probably know WPP, they're one of the largest global media companies in the world. And Anu has got quite a story of how she has gone through a career and got to this role. So, without further ado, Anu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charlie. Happy to be here.
Let's jump straight in and just tell me about your story. How did you get into technology?
Um, it's a bit of a long story, so bear with me. I was born in India and grew up in an Indian culture and value system. I'm the youngest of two daughters and lived across India in my formative years, owing to my father being in the Indian defense. So change was a constant. New schools, new friends, new culture every 3 years, which was the frequency at which my father would get a posting change. On the note of culture, I want to give you a bit of trivia about India. India has about 28 states and 8 union territories. Each state in India has its own distinct culture, language, and traditions. And I lived in almost 12 states across India and know about 75% of the various languages spoken there. Needless to say, the culture adaptation was a given in my complete formative years. In India, there are two mainstream careers that parents aspire for their kids, either doctors or engineers. Nothing else works. It's still the case. And with the IT boom that took over India in the late 1990s, engineers meant computer science engineers. My parents too had similar aspirations for both my sister and me. Grew up seeing my sister rebel against being a doctor, which is what my parents wanted her to be. She moved on to do something else. I had a love for mathematics and it made me rebel against being a computer science engineer. And so I ended up winning. I studied mathematics in my graduation, but then soon realized computers was where the future was. And I did my post graduation in computer science. And that's my story of how I landed up in technology sector. I was picked up in the campus recruitment from university and I worked in India's telecommunications industry in the technology department. And I was really lucky that I did this from the beginning. Learning coding, development, configuration, testing, all of that whilst working in Kolkata. It's a part of India. It was a great learning ground for me, and my fundamental work ethics took foundation there. I developed a love for telecom industry as that was the time of rapid change in telecoms. There were pagers and then there were mobiles and then there were smaller handsets. It was beautiful. I was part of the various trials that happened between CDMA and GSM and started focusing on the various billing systems and products. In the next 15 years, I worked in billing product companies and also with system integrators. My work took me to countries like USA, Madagascar, Brunei, Hong Kong, China, Africa, Spain, numerous countries, and I developed a love for travel. Meeting people from different countries, learning about their cultures and traditions, I just loved it. I gained loads of experience whilst doing this in delivery, pre sales, sales, solutioning, designing, and setting up large centers for delivery at offshore and nearshore locations. That was a byproduct of the various roles I played. And then, while I was working with TCS, I was handpicked by the CEO of TCS to go to Saudi Arabia to help set up the first IT all women center. This was a pivotal point in my life as I had never been to Riyadh before. I never would have dreamt I would go there because it's in a country of Saudi Arabia. It has the strictest laws. Women had to abide by very, very strict rules and regulations. At that point, when I went there, women were not allowed to drive. We had regulations around whom we could speak and interact with. The wearing of the black robe, the abaya, and the headscarf was mandatory for me to, though I did not belong to the country and I did not belong to that religion. it was mandatory for anyone working there or being there. Setting up the IT delivery center at Riyadh and delivering IT services to customers and all that went into it, the training, working around laws of women needing separate workplace. For example, because I had to set up a separate workplace for women, we had to have all women serving staff. I had to literally look for female security guards from other nearby countries and bringing them to Saudi Arabia and Riyadh to work with me in the center. All of these were great learnings for me, because there were so many things I had never done in the past. The center, needless to say, was a major success and became a showcase center as the first all women technology center in Saudi Arabia, which was never done before. We hosted visitors, including Barack Obama, the US president at that point, Narendra Modi, he was the Indian prime minister, and various other dignitaries who would visit Saudi Arabia, meet the king, and the Saudi king would bring them to the center for a visit. So I had all of those lovely experiences. I worked there for 4 years. I left Riyadh a changed person with loads of perspective about life, career, family, culture, and of course, with the strongest belief that anything is possible. And then came the move to London. I moved here 7 years ago to work as a client partner for British Telecom. That role gave me loads of experience in managing one of the largest P&L businesses for TCS in UK. Whilst working for British Telecom, I made so many connections, my networking increased, and I then got the offer to work with WPP, where I'm working today. Um, how I was able to get into such a lovely role that I currently am playing in technology in a country like UK is because I managed a network, work with British stakeholders, understood the work culture here, got to make new friends, and I'm now working setting up large offshore and nearshore centers for WPP, um, helping a lot of the transformation work that is currently happening in WPP. And here I'm on the podcast and I'm loving it.
What a story, and it's so inspiring to hear how you from a childhood of travel and change and transformation. With your dad being in the army, so understanding, so that embedded into you and understanding then of getting into your professional life, how you can use that skill, and then with a love of technology and yeah and telecoms and the journey you've been through. I mean that's inspiring. That's lovely. And as you say, you're here working for one of the most respected brands, respected companies in the world, doing some amazing things. So we were talking just before the podcast about topics of passion, and you were really clear in your mind that a big passion of yours is helping to support, promoting, and supporting girls into technology, women into technology. Talk us through a bit about this. Being able to relate any of your own challenges, or what are you? What are the most fundamental things we can do to support that cause?
Um, so whilst on the topics of interest, yes, we did speak before the podcast. For me, technology, people, and culture all are extremely important. As an Asian woman working in technology in UK and having worked in multiple geographies earlier, I've developed a keen interest in people and culture with an affinity towards technology, which was, of course, my career choice. Of specific interest because of all of this to me is women in technology and how I can support their career development. Young women coming into technology for the first time or have been in technology for a few years facing challenges. So the presence of women in technology has changed leaps and bounds since I started off, where I used to be the single woman in a room full of men, to now I really feel happy, where women are at least 25 to 30% in the lower and middle management levels, and I'm no longer the only woman in a meeting room or in a conference room. It really has changed a lot. Um, in my formative years, in my years when I've been in technology, I have faced many challenges. So, challenges not just by me, but many more such women like me in the early 2000s who started their tech career. Um, there were myriad for underrepresentation, gender bias, and stereotypes. And trust me, they still exist. Lack of role models was a big challenge that I faced because there were hardly any women who were senior who could tell me what their life journey was, like I'm able to tell you today. we had very limited or no networking opportunities. It was all for men. Women were not even invited to these networking opportunities, and we had loads of barriers to career advancement. I'm not saying these barriers are no longer there, but they are so much better now, and the list will go on. This was one constant in each country that I worked in. And these challenges evolved, they changed gradually over the years, things started getting better. And women now have made their presence known and felt in more ways than one. We no longer need to fight for a place at the table. Like I said, we have so many women at workplace. We have many women who are present in senior leadership roles, but challenges still persist in other ways. My interest, my passion lies in working with young women who have started their careers to guide them on their career journey, help them with their career development while ensuring that they focus on their well being. Because more often than not, and I have done this too, I did not focus on my well being. I did not focus on work life balance. I have made those mistakes. And I would not want today's women who are embarking on this journey to make the same mistakes. I enjoy being a mentor and coach when needed and supporting them in developing personal brand and networking, because this is very important. It's so important, but very often does not get enough focus in the larger scheme of things. So, this is why I'm so passionate about women in technology and giving my support wherever possible. And that's one of the reasons I'm on this podcast today.
Yeah, and you can, what's lovely when having guests like yourself is how authentic and clear that your passion is from within rather than driven by any other factors. And really, I think I was speaking to another person, a senior CIO of a pharma business, and and one of the things that they said is talking about these topics, it needs to be talked about at all levels by all people, not just by a person who might have experienced it themselves, but actually, if we can create the forum where everyone is talking about these things and understanding the importance of diversity and actually understanding that not everyone is equal, and you've got to help. You've got to make true equity. You've got to be able to provide some balance, and I think looking at from people moving, any barriers that you faced when you first moved over from, the cultural challenges, we need to be able to support that, don't we? And support people when they enter new cultures and give them time to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. So, an example is when I moved to London, I moved in from Saudi Arabia. And in Saudi Arabia for 4 years, I had actually changed myself to not shaking hands, not looking at anyone in the eye. I could not, we were not allowed to see men in the eye or talk to them. It has to be remote, it has to be on emails. If we see a male, we cannot look at the male, we cannot shake hands. So for me to suddenly move to London, where it was normal to hug, it was normal to kiss on the cheek, it took me almost 6 months to get over the culture of
Um,
Saudi Arabia to UK. So adapting and change is very important. We often tend to forget that.
yeah, wow, and that's what an example, what an example, and as we know, with Neon City being built in Saudi Arabia and the amount of infrastructure going there, and do you think they will evolve their thinking over time as they're trying to globalize
Oh,
the
they've already
country?
changed, Charlie. So, 2 months ago, a friend of mine from UK, she's again working in technology, had to go into Riyadh for a work meeting, and she reached out to me knowing that I have worked there. So I spoke with friends that I still have in Saudi Arabia. Things have changed. They've really evolved. We no longer need to wear the abaya. We don't no longer need to cover our heads. We can dress as we please, and we can sit in the same meeting room with men now to have meetings, which was absolute taboo when I was there. Women could be
Wow.
in jail if we just spoke to a man. Things have changed for the
Wow.
better.
Well, thank goodness. That's that. Yeah. Well, that's evolving. That's evolvement. That's yeah. Thank goodness to hear that. So time always flies when there's topics that are this passionate and wonderful to hear. So it's that part of the show now where I ask you career advice. So for a lot of our young listeners, and maybe aimed specifically at the young girls who may be thinking about how can I break into technology or careers, in the wider STEM, what would be the one or two bits of advice that you would give them?
I may not limit it to one or two if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine.
So, my view is that moving from being a student to a career professional is a big milestone. And it will be accompanied by its own set of challenges. My advice would be for a holistic approach towards building a successful you rather than just a career. So, starting off, start with building a strong work ethic. It's really helped me, and I would give this advice to anyone starting a career. Have a strong work ethic, be punctual and reliable, show commitment to your work and willingness to go the extra mile, take initiatives, and be proactive in solving problems. The next bit of advice would be open to learning new skills and acquiring knowledge. Embrace feedback and change as it is given to you. To this day, I continue to learn and constantly seek to up my ante at work. I feel it's never too late to learn, and it's never wrong to take feedback and change because that's always for our betterment. The third bit of advice would be developing strong communication skills. It's very important. What I say next may sound cliched, but active listening with the stress on active is super important. Collaborating effectively with coworkers and contributing to team dynamics is very, very important. And like I said earlier, networking, networking. Connecting with colleagues, mentors, industry peers will take you a long way. We need to build those connections early on. Build those connections, keep building onto those connections, go to as many tech events as possible that are relevant to you. And these connections will really work wonders for you over the years. And whilst doing all this, manage your finances wisely. It will be great to start earning, getting money in your hands. It'll be very tempting to use it, blow it all up, but manage your finances wisely, set goals, meaningful goals, and prioritize. And while doing all of this, focus on your mental and physical well being. My early years of constant family change made me adaptable to constant change, and that has helped me in my career. Now change is constant. I'm in a global tech transformation team where change is constantly happening. We are constantly asked to go back to the drawing board and keep making change. So my advice would be always stay positive. It's very easy to get swayed when we have worked on something, we're now again asked to change. We need to stay positive and resilient and be ready to embrace change, as change is always constant. And lastly, focus on building your own personal brand. It should be what you are and what you would like to be known for. Take time, take time to find your true self, your authentic self, and take that to your workplace. Your first job is just the beginning of your career journey. It's a valuable learning experience, and the skills, the lessons you gain will serve you well as you progress in your career. You need to stay focused, motivated, and never stop seeking opportunities for growth. So sorry, that was more than one or two things.
Uh, but you know what? Every single word there resonated, and I couldn't keep up, to be honest. So thank goodness it's been recorded for people to be able to listen. But I couldn't agree more about the work ethic, being open to learning new skills, networking, as you mentioned, and start that early. Managing finances, that there is so many life lessons in that, and for many of our young listeners, every single one of those is valid. So it's so important just to be looking at that and being very holistic about it. Anu, time has flown by. What a show, and what a story, and just thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I loved it. Thanks for having me here.
Fantastic. And to our listeners, that is another episode of the Future Tech Podcast. It's posted on the STEM Ambassador Association Hub, along with on our website, majorgroup.com/podcast, and on our Major Group Spotify channel. So thank you, everyone, for listening or watching the podcast. And one more time, thank you to Anu for being a guest.
Thank you, Charlie, and good luck to all of you.